This is Don't Get Me Started. This is a conversation about advertising. And here is your host, freelance creative director and creative circus department head, Dan Balser.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. First of all, thank you so much for continuing to listen to these conversations. I really enjoyed recording this chat with Derek, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. I just want to say, I hope everybody out there is doing okay. It's surreal to be recording conversations this way. It's surreal to be separate in my house all the time and not see people face to face. This was recorded, as the last one was, over a video chat where the audio is then uploaded to the internet, then downloaded and edited. And there are a couple of instances in this conversation where the internet kind of messes with my voice, and it's fine. A couple of times you'll be able to figure out what I was saying, but at the very end I mentioned Nate Goodwin's name, and I think his first name kind of got lost in the ether. So Nate, hello, hope you're doing well. Both Derek and I say hello. This is a conversation with Derek Walker. Derek and I were of the same generation. He graduated from Portfolio Center, where I went to school. We were there at the same time for about 5 minutes, I think. He then left and went to Fallgren. He worked at Temerlin McLean, TBWA Chiat Day. He was associate creative director in-house at Radio Shack for 3 years in the early 2000s. He was ACD at a place called IMC2, and for the last 13 years, he's been in Columbia, South Carolina with his own agency called Brown and Browner. I just want to make sure that you start following Derek on Twitter. He's at Derek L. Walker. He is a prominent voice in the movement for equality and fairness and better work and better agency culture. And it was so fun to talk to him, and it's very inspiring to follow him on Twitter. This conversation is kind of broken into two parts. The first half, we get kind of dig into the heavy stuff right off the bat, and then we talk about advertising. And there's some really good stuff in there for young people, mid-level people, and seniors. And I could easily talk to Derek for hours and hours and hours, and I'm just so grateful for his time, and I really hope you enjoy this conversation. So without any more of my yammering, here's both of our yammering. So let's get to it. So coming to you live from a hotel room somewhere in Columbia, South Carolina. First of all, let's get a picture of Derek's day, because I don't know, the listeners are just hearing this conversation. I'm looking at you with a wall behind you with nothing on it because you're in a hotel room. Why are you in a hotel room? Real quick.
We had a massive water leak under the house, the length of the house, the main water line. And in South Carolina, it's kind of hot and humid, and the mold grew. And we're getting replaced almost the entire floor, some of the walls, both of the bathrooms, part of the kitchen. We're getting a new house.
That's nice. That's okay.
Yes. The insurance company's not happy. I'm not happy, but
no.
So I'm in a hotel with my father, who has memory issues because I'm his primary caregiver at night. But during the virus, we sent the daytime caregiver home for her safety.
Yeah.
And that's just only fair. We still pay her, but we send her home.
So you have a lot of jobs. You're taking care of your dad. You're being an advertising creative director. You are virtually ubiquitous in conversations around what's happening in the industry and the world right now. First question I have for you is, tell me how you feel about, first of all, doing things like this conversation, recording this conversation. How do you feel about being a voice? And just first of all, generally speaking, because you've been a voice for quite a while. So how does that come to part of your identity, and why is that important to you? And how do you feel about all these asks for all these panels you've been asked to sit on?
I'm trying not to curse. I hate it more than people realize. I am a copywriter by trade, and that I have to devote so much of my time and energy to this crap because other people won't do their damn jobs. You know, I just want to create ads, man, but they wouldn't let me, and they won't let me. And then we pretend like it's an accidental thing that we got to where we are, but it isn't. I mean, we've been fighting this fight since the 60s. Like the 1968 is the first advertising diversity initiative. And we have, I mean, come on, man, it's 68. We should have made some. We made ground for a while, and then we fell back. Um, I'm glad people asked me to do this. I say things. I can say things that a lot of other people can't because I own a small agency.
Right.
I don't report to holding companies. But the other part is I get no fucks to give.
Mm.
I mean,
Has there ever been a cost to you speaking out that you know of?
I've lost, I think, 4 clients. I
For
don't get 4 clients, don't get invited to any of the panels. I don't get to judge anything. Um, I got a couple, I take that back. I got Omaha, Portland, and maybe Seattle. Those 3 ad clubs. But um, it's funny, people know me, but I get to be the pariah too.
Mm.
You know.
So okay, so I detect some resentment, and I am not going to be as ignorant as to equate my Jewish experience to a Black experience. I'm not going to be that, but I have had resentment throughout my life of sort of white ignorance.
Mhm.
So I'm not patient, and there's been moments where it's sort of like be the bigger guy, just help educate someone. But there's a limit to how much you can be the bigger guy, and
Yeah.
and how do you square with the resentment? How do you go about your day? And is the resentment based on frustration because nothing changes, or is the resentment based on having to educate idiots?
More that nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think calling them idiots was letting them off the hook. They're not idiots. No, these are brilliant people who have chosen to be ignorant.
Mm.
They have chosen not to see things. Um, there are
So,
some people. There's some
but
people on my Twitter account who are adamant and out there about everything but race. That wear their Christianity as far as being advertising professionals, but can't find their Christianity to speak on racial issues.
mm.
So resentment, I don't even think it's resentment as much as it's rage because uh, I've got to do stuff and I've got to put other things on hold. If I didn't have to worry about this stuff, I could be creating ads,
Mm.
but I can't create ads because this stuff gets in the way. When I show up to a meeting, black clients go a potential client meeting, they go, "Oh, we don't do black advertising. I don't do black ads. I do advertising."
So, has there been a moment in your career, even in school, when you were liberated from this and you could just be creative?
Oh
Or
yes.
is this when has it been utopia?
Chiat Day was close. I worked at
Mhm.
TBWA Chiat on their regional Nissan and um, United Diesel out of Las Colinas, Texas, Irving. Las Colinas is like a neighborhood, and it was just cool to create ads. You know, they didn't care what I looked like, and there's some great agencies for that. At the junior or senior level, it's when you get to the ACD, creative director, ECD level, group creative director, that you don't see. You figure out your mobility is stymied.
Yeah. I want the listeners to be on your journey a little bit. I think that for a lot of young, especially white
Hmm.
creatives who hear these words, they hear them in an abstract way, and it seems clearly wrong, but it's very difficult to internalize.
Hmm.
So, can you talk a little bit about your career trajectory, starting with the 20-second interview? Do you know what I'm talking about?
22nd interview.
You had a
Oh
20 hyphen
yeah,
second interview.
yes. Um, I drove down, graduated from the University of South Carolina. A gentleman named Ken Bowes gave me 10 CEOs, well, 10 names to talk to. And most of the 10 were CEOs of agencies. I didn't know this when he gave it to me. Bless his heart. He's been a saint in my life. So I drive down for this one interview. I had been talking to the agency on the telephone because we didn't have online back then, and I knew the receptionist. So I bounced. I got my suit on. Got my. This is the '80s, folks. So just bear with us. We had to wear suits. We carried that big portfolio case that if the wind blew, you could find yourself like 500, 600 feet down the road. And
Big
I sh-
sale.
yeah, like a sale. And I show up and I walk in and I say hello, and I call her by name and she looks at me and the blood drains from her face. She goes, "You're Derek." And she gets up from her receptionist desk at a 300 person agency, phone ringing, and she darts down the hall. I was like, "Oh, that's odd." And so I'm just standing there. She come, she doesn't come back. The CEO comes back, the gentleman I'm supposed to meet with, and he takes my hand and he shakes it and he goes, "Derek, hello, Derek. I'm sorry, but our clients aren't ready for a black copywriter." And that was the end of my interview. It's so funny because I walked away from that. I told you a story at one time, so you know, I was in the car before it hit me. I'm in the parking garage going, and it just finally hits you, and you get so angry. I mean, I drove 4 hours for this.
Right, right. Ugh.
I didn't even
Uh,
get the interview. So, my goal, my life goal for a long time was to buy his agency and turn it into a parking lot. I didn't get to it before somebody else bought it and shut it down. But anyway,
all right. This is my perverse fantasy of you and my relationship with you. This is what I want
hmm
to do. You and I are from the same generation, speak the same advertising language. I want to partner up for 2 minutes to talk about
okay,
how we can fix some of the things that you see happening and how I can help enable that. And you were on a panel from LinkedIn with Unbiased. This is
yes,
I guess I would best describe Consciously Unbiased as a branded grassroots movement. That's how I
yeah,
would call it. And this thing was called Let's Talk About Privilege. And on there, you said something, you're already laughing at privilege, right?
yes,
This is the thing that has stuck with me since I overheard you on that panel. You said we need to get to a point where you probably don't remember this because listeners, let me explain something about Derek. Derek and I had a conversation the other day about this very conversation. And I mentioned a couple of the questions I wanted to ask Derek. And Derek said, I didn't listen to you at all. I don't want to hear any of it. I want to be in the moment when you ask me the question. I want to answer the question in the moment. So you, Derek, if you're like me, a little bit of ADD, a
yes,
little bit in the moment, don't quite
hmm
remember what I said.
yeah,
I'll be in class sometime and the student will say, last week you said, and I'm sitting there thinking, please say it's good. Please say something good. Please say something I agree with now. So you said in this panel that
oh God,
our challenge is we need to destigmatize bias.
yes,
We need to basically be out with our racial bias, our gender bias. We need to basically cut ourselves open to talk about these things, right?
yes,
And not just talk about race when there's just black people in the room. I had an email this morning from a former student of mine, Tom Williams, love him. And he told me he's one of these long string of people who work in the agencies where they've had these town halls where the black people can talk.
yeah.
And where are the white people? So I want, how am I supposed to have these conversations about bias where I feel like I'm not going to be judged by saying, yeah, I did assume this or I did think that. I mean, is that kind of where we have to get to? How do we
But you have to have it with other white people first.
hmm,
So you can't have that with the black person until you're secure with who you are. I'm an asshole. I know I'm an asshole, and I embrace my assholeness. So if somebody calls me one, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I can be short and abrupt, and sometimes I can be mean and vicious. I can be so caught up on the work that I don't care about your feelings or anything. I know my bias. I came from a neighborhood of I grew up in a community where athleticism was rewarded. So for most parts of my life, the way we looked at people who were overweight was a negative thing.
mm-hmm.
So when I started hiring people and everything, I had to sit back and go, well, why don't you have any heavy set people?
Hmm.
They qualified, but you're not hiring. See, that's a bias that, you know, and I had to go, Derek, you got an issue here. That's not that
Mhm.
person's issue. That's my issue. Now, what happens when white people sit around together and talk about those biases is they get to see that they're not as bad as they think they are. And it's not a comparison thing, but it's letting everyone understand, hey, we all have them. Now let's talk about them because they get in the way of us doing what's right.
Mm.
Now, if you had that conversation with a black person, you already have a bias that, God, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to piss somebody off. I don't want to do this. But remove us from that conversation. And can you and another white person talk about this and just get all that out? Now that person can hold you accountable and you can hold that person accountable. I know a young male copywriter, black guy, and he had the gall to tell his creative team, he's a junior, come on team, we can do better. We could do better creative work. And he got written up for being aggressive. If he had been white, would that have been aggressive?
Right. No.
So what's the bias there? It's not a prejudice and it's not racism. It's a bias that says, oh, my bias is only black people that are assertive are aggressive. Black people who are passionate are aggressive. Black people who are confident are aggressive. Kill that bias.
Right.
But you have to do that self-evaluation by yourself or with family members, somebody that knows you. And you know what? I was married, you're married. Spouses are the best sometimes because they see warts and everything and they go, oh yeah, you got that issue. No, I don't. Yes, you do.
Oh God, Lisa. I married a Lisa. So I'm married, listeners don't know, to a certified diversity executive who's doing this work every single day.
Yeah.
She sent me recently an article of 5 words that we can't use in public relations because like terms like grandfather clause. Do you know about grandfather, where that comes from?
No.
That comes from it'll take me too long to explain it in detail, but it comes from voting rights, where when blacks were allowed to vote, they gave the literacy test.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem was the poor whites were illiterate. So they said, well, if you were able to vote before the law, then you're able to vote after the law. So they basically grandfathered in the old illiterate whites and their families as a way to suppress the black vote.
Oh, so that's a bad thing to say then.
Yes, it's a bad thing to say then. Yes, and there's a whole list of them. So
I'm so in trouble because that's so ingrained in what we were raised to say.
Right, it's become, we've forgotten the origin of it. So I was on, Lisa also does this for me, and I think this is something that I think we need to do as a white community. And we haven't talked about advertising at all. So listeners, whatever.
Yeah,
we will. I promise we will. Seeking out and watching the things that you don't necessarily want to. I just picked up this book.
Yes.
Charlemagne the God, Black Privilege. I've been watching a lot of John Oliver.
Yeah.
And Lisa had us on a panel with 850 people on a Zoom called Internalized Whiteness in the Southeast US. And it was only white people. Ooh. And they had a panel of experts, panel of people who work in this area, basically discussing what it means to have internalized whiteness and what comes with that. Privilege, whether it's guilt, whether it's hopelessness, responsibility, all of these different things. And a comment came out that really resonated with me was, my internalized white superiority has robbed me of reality. It has prevented me from seeing reality. And I think that we have to basically get out of our quiet safety to have some real conversations. Very, very important.
Can I disagree with you for a second?
I would like that.
We have been talking advertising since we started. This is everything we're talking about impacts how we create messages and who we are talking to and how we value the audience that we talk to. Advertising has ignored Black and brown people forever, but the two groups now, Hispanics and Blacks in America, are both, if you take them out of the economy and give them their own nation based on their spending, they're like 6th and 7th in the world. We're in the top 10. How can a group of underprivileged, unspoken to people spend have this much buying power?
That's interesting.
And nobody catches a clue. Um, I'll share this real quick and then get back to you because this is yours. Miracle Whip, the salad dressing, skews heavy with blacks, amazingly high. Yet their advertising is aimed still at general market white people. Imagine what happens if you pivot just a little. Mayonnaise, the taste palette for mayonnaise and Miracle Whip tend to be different between black and white. There are some people who cross over, but a lot of African Americans prefer the taste of Miracle Whip.
I do.
Yeah, it's the sweetness, it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why wouldn't your advertising then focus on the group that's driving your sales?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't.
Are you talking about media or creative?
Both.
What is black creative?
You know, I don't want to give it away because it's such a great concept.
It's good. It's creative and good and smart.
Yes, I'm not giving it to those Miracle Whip people. Did you see? I can't get his name right. The gentleman that played Black Panther was on Saturday Night Live,
mm-hmm.
and he did the Black Jeopardy.
Yes. Yeah.
And remember the whole thing about Karen? Whoever the young lady's name was, she'll bring potato salad.
Right, Karen or Nancy, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, but it won't be seasoned, and she won't use any salt. And if she does season it, it would be very little paprika, but not enough.
Right.
There's an insight in that.
Right.
You know, so
fair.
It's not a totally black thing, but it is a black thing. So it's like, okay, imagine a spot where
all you did was what we do. We uncovered a truth, an insight, a universal truth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Something that people aren't necessarily noticing, but you notice it because we're observant people. That's what we're supposed to do.
In the black family dynamics, you just don't bust up to a family gathering with any dish. You are assigned a dish, and you do not cook above your status. You work your way up from ice.
You work your way up from ice.
Yes, and you better bring the crushed ice. Don't bring those big cloggy. Nobody likes a big ice cube, so you got to bring So you work your way up, and paper plates is actually kind of in the middle because you can't be cheap and bring those flimsy paper plates.
You can mess that up. Yeah, you can mess it up.
So to this comment about what is black is, I've never seen a spot where it understood that in the dynamics of a family gathering, somebody will quite literally say, "Who made this?"
Mm-hmm.
And if the
That's
right, but if the right person didn't make this, nobody's eating it. And so
interesting.
Think about how that spot would look.
Yeah.
You know, the old lady standing at the table. I'm not joking, y'all. Who made the potato salad? Who made the potato salad? And, you know, everybody's there around going, they're looking so there's a spot for Miracle Whip in the fact that, look, you haven't shown that at black family gatherings, you just can't bust up in there with your vegan tofu potato salad. No.
Right.
And
that's interesting what you're talking about too. You're talking about the other side of the equation. The conversation we always have about race and advertising tends to come from the black person's contribution to creativity. That the African American has worked his way into culture through the back door on his own terms or her own terms, but in music and art and all these other ways. And there's an untapped talent pool that advertising should be leveraging. What you're talking about, which I really love. The friggin' not the black or white, the green part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're talking about the green part. You're talking about where the money is.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. That's taking it up.
Vaseline. The whole ashy conversation. White people don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our skin is a color, and if it doesn't get oiled enough, it turns sort of grayish.
You just see it. That's all.
Yeah.
We get dry skin, but it looks different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. You don't get the ashy grayness.
Right, yep.
And I've never seen a lotion or a skincare or anything use the word ashy.
You've only heard stand-up guys do it. That's it.
Yeah. And think about the brilliance of that, man. I mean,
right.
If we could put our biases down and say, well, how valuable are I've actually been in meetings where people have said, well, but black people don't spend that much money, do they? They're not valuable as a consumer.
Oh, God.
You know,
They
and I'm
say,
like, in what universe do you live?
right.
But
They
they're
don't,
by
they don't have generational wealth. That's a
no,
whole other conversation,
yeah.
but they're spending. So I have another quote that you said. So put your seatbelt on. He puts his head down. Okay, you guys missed it. Derek just slapped his head. So on the Disruptor Series podcast,
Oh yeah. I haven't listened to that one either.
you said that you were, and I'm quoting now, not trained to compete for a sliver of the pie. I'm trained for the whole pie.
Yes.
Meaning that as a creative who came out of Portfolio Center in '94,
Hmm.
you're not coming out to do advertising for a specific target.
No.
So how's that worked out?
Worked out
And
worked out great.
great, good.
What was the end to that? I'm sorry.
No, you just said you're trained for the whole pie, and you tried at that point to explain some reasons why Black creatives are thought of as less creative,
Hmm.
and how you're supposed to be pigeonholed, and how this is the thing I've heard a lot from women. It's like, you're going to get hired to work on the feminine brands and all
Hmm.
those kind of things. But I just wanted to ask you how those two, don't you bring something for that slice of the pie, or are you saying that you're the sliver of the pie, which I'm assuming you mean that since you're Black doesn't mean you should only do quote unquote minority advertising, but
Yeah.
don't you bring kind of a superpower insight to that target? Or do you think that's something that someone I could do with good planning?
You could do it with good planning, but I know it naturally
Right.
and I get there quicker.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by sliver is um the second I become a minority vendor, I don't get to pitch general market accounts.
Oh, you
Um,
mean you mean the agency is a minority
yeah,
agency. Right.
yeah. The second I start doing that work, the quality of my book is like a car driven off the lot. I lose value on my book, not because the work is decreased. It's the perception of the work. Um, it's so multi-level, but to be totally honest with you, I've been kicking white boys' asses in general market advertising because I'm Black.
Mm.
See, because my view, I can switch it on and off. I spend most of my time at work in a white world.
So you're bilingual.
Yeah. But my life is lived in a Black world with humor, comedy, art, music, style, fashion, everything. What white guys have learned to steal, I live.
Yeah, that's great.
So the swagger I can bring to copy when it needs to have swagger or comedy or whatever, it comes from a place that most of them don't have. So it's different. And then people go, where'd you get that joke? You know, I played the dozens growing up, and kids in the inner city, Black or white, played some form of the dozens where you cracked on each other until, and the audience sort of kept count. In the South, we called it the dozens. So
What is it?
it's like your mama jokes.
Okay. Yeah.
And the winner is the person who doesn't get upset, who tells the most hurtful joke. So, it's like your mama's so stupid. She got fired from the M&M factory for throwing away the W's. And you stand there, and you have to take those jokes.
Yeah.
Your mama's so fat, she plays hopscotch this way. South Carolina, California, Tennessee,
Right.
and you and
Classic
and you
stuff.
stand there and you have to be quick with it. It's like rap, it's like rap battles. So now if I can do that on a daily basis growing up, how quick am I with my lines in creative? The retort.
Yeah. You're armed. Yeah,
So
that's great.
I'm dumped into a world where these guys have never had to play the dozens. They've never had to be that sharp or quick. On my bus going to in high school, if you couldn't tell a good joke or take a good jab, you were the blunt of a beatdown almost daily. Not a physical beatdown, but a verbal beatdown.
Well, that's as much of the preparation as the succeeding, because advertising is nothing but
Yeah.
verbal beatdowns and failures. I mean, so I would argue that you're prepared to do this career more for losing.
Yeah.
I should say equally as much for losing, because we lose more than we win in advertising. So
Exactly.
the fail rate's pretty damn high, and you realize there's another one in the hopper. You can always pull up another one.
Yeah.
That I think is one of the hardest things for young creatives to realize, is that you don't have ideas. You're a machine that makes ideas.
Yeah.
So just keep making them.
Exactly. Pump them out. Pump them out. And that's why when I say sliver, is I worked on an account and it was $230 million was the entire account. The Black and Hispanic part of that account combined was $5 million a year.
Mm. Mm.
Now,
God.
so you had to divide 5 million between two.
Yeah, there's not a lot of overlap there.
No. And I'm not, since I'm always been on the main accounts, I was looking at those relationships going, oh, I never want to be that agency. There's nothing wrong with that agency, but the relationship they're in is an abusive one.
Mm.
And it's I'll say this for you guys, it's a plantation system.
Mm-hmm.
The client is the slave owner. When they set up these, well, the way we do advertising now, the general market agency is the overseer managing the slaves, and the slaves are the minority agencies and all the other small vendors. Everything doesn't go from, and think about it, the minority agency can't submit work directly to the client. It goes through the general market agency.
Right. This is how it used to be with digital when digital was new. Is this how it still goes?
Yeah. In a lot of places, it still goes like this.
God, you got to start your own place. Oh, you did. Good.
Yeah.
So I have some other questions. Can we shift gears a little bit? Okay. So this is a major shift gear. This is more about COVID-19 and students, and we're going to move a little bit away from the race situation for a second. We'll get back there probably.
No, we don't have to go back.
Do you have advice about how to work in this situation when people are learning the craft? Because at school, it's very difficult for some of the kids that are in the earlier quarters. I think when you're in 8th quarter, about to finish the program, and you know your partner and you're presenting off your website, this is a great format. So what advice do you give for people who are trying to not only figure out their craft, but trying to figure out how to collaborate and be loose with each other, given the situation we're in right now?
Oh, just flexibility and curiosity. This is the problem I see. Already the kids weren't curious. They're not trained to be curious like we were.
Very good point.
So here you are in this period of time where you have a lot of free time on your hands. You need to go to these sites that show the work from all over the world. Ads of the World used to be the website. I went there and they've sort of changed. What's the other one? TheFWA.com.
DFWA?
THEFWA.com.
Yeah.
They show work from all over. And it's so, I wish we had the internet when we were younger, because we had the Encyclopedia Britannica.
We had World Book or Britannica, but you know what else we did is I would, if I had a female partner, I would act like we were a young couple buying a lawnmower and get a sales pitch and handle the machine and push it around. Because you get to feel it and see something. Oh, wow, that handle's kind of cool. And let's talk about that. The downside of the internet is you get a lot of product information, but you're not really experiencing things.
No.
But what you're saying is very important. What you're saying is look at the stuff that's being done around the world. I think it's great to look at design sites, to look at all sorts of other things. So you and I are writers, but I could get inspired by design.
And the thing though is discover what the old people did. The arrogance of the young, and this is not beating up on young people, but they don't realize almost 98, maybe 99% of the big brands that everybody wants to work on were built on traditional advertising. They were built on TV and radio and print. You know, until you get to the Googles and the Facebooks of the world. And Facebook does a ton of TV. You know, social media. It's so funny that social media has always done TV while saying TV is dead.
Right. While saying TV is dead.
I'm like, oh, but you're on TV. Oh, it's dead. You know, I would like to see students who are teamed up leave these cameras on, kick off the headphones, and just go through concepting the way we used to. So pretend this is not the screen isn't a screen, but it's almost like you're in the same room, but the room's divided in two. Then go through part of your day where you're not always talking about the work. We used to be able to sit in the office with each other as art director and copywriter and BS and just let the idea come. Here's an opportunity for them to sit in the same place with the camera on, but not facing each other all the time, not talking, but being in the chair, just being in the presence of each other.
That's really interesting because you know what it is? I just realized as you're saying that
Hmm.
the currency is thought. The currency
Yes,
is not an execution.
there you
You're
go.
not sitting down to make something. You're
Uh-uh.
sitting down to bounce
Yeah,
things. And things could be about unrelated things.
yeah. I mean, why can't one partner be in the kitchen cooking?
Exactly. Right.
You know, because how many times have we sat around a pool table or in a comfortable conference room, or and we don't talk that much.
Mm.
You're my art director's doodling. I've got my feet up. I'm trying to write line. I'm thinking about lines or what I'm thinking about something, and there's a silence, but we're in it together.
That's a nail on the head. And I think it's becoming comfortable with the silence when this feels there's too much gravitas to these screens. And
Yeah,
there's a lack of nonverbal communication. You have to get comfortable with that. But
yeah.
if you and I were to push back to that wall
Hmm.
and I saw your body and you saw my bare feet,
Yeah,
it would be a little bit more real. So
yeah,
maybe that's what it is. Don't try so hard, maybe. I don't
yeah.
know.
That's what I'm saying is when we're on when the camera's on, we're trained to be on.
That's it. Yes.
And not and what we're talking about is leave the camera on and be off. There's a chair behind you, you'd be sitting there with your feet up doing whatever.
Correct. That's it. Exactly. That's a great answer. All right.
And
Next question. So
hmm
you're a creative director, you got your own agency, you're looking
yeah,
to hire junior talent. Two books come across your desk, and they're pretty similar samples. What do you go for the tiebreaker? How would you try to break a tie given two equal books? How do you
I,
evaluate hiring someone?
I don't. The book is just is an appetizer. Um, but and I'm old school. I'm very old school. I look at the editing of the book, and I look at the pacing of the book.
Mhm.
You can't tell me that you can't look at your portfolio and tell me the best piece in your portfolio. You just can't. Don't say they're all great because that's bullshit.
Bullshit.
Give me so I like to see the pacing. Start strong. Come behind that strong, a couple of the little more weaker ones, then another strong one, then a couple more weak ones, and you finish amazing. We
Dude,
don't teach
I love this. I love this.
we
Keep
don't
going.
teach that. We don't teach the art of presenting anymore because on websites we're showing too much damn work. And we let you
Mm.
go wherever you want to go on the website. I think websites for portfolios you should control that flow. I should be telling you how. It's sort of like do you watch any of the cooking shows?
Not much. I've seen them.
There are a couple of cooking competitions. I'm a big food fan. And one of the judges says, always present the plate the way you want me to consume it.
Mm.
So if instead of putting the lemon on the side, go ahead and sprinkle the lemon on top because that's what you want me to do. Don't automatically assume that I'm going to pick up the lemon. When you come to a portfolio online, where do I go first? You know, how do you make sure I get that? Make me laugh. Then the next two are okay, make me think, and then the next one makes me feel something. There's no pacing to it. It's all like plop, you just throw it all out on the table, and you know.
That's
And
really, really interesting.
the other part to it is, I think, and this is what young people need to be really. This is how you find a good boss. The good boss wants to know why. So when they're looking at your work, if they're not asking, why'd you do this? What were you thinking? How'd you get here? That person may not be as good as you think they are at their job of leading creative, because great creative bosses, you walk into them and they don't ask you, they don't go, oh, let me fix this work. They go, now, how'd you get here? Why did you do this? You know, that's the better boss to be looking at. So I'm looking at, I may look at a book, at two books, and they be equal. Then I'm bringing those two people to me. And then it's up to you to sell me on how much you believe in the work. It's nothing like that person that opens their book and when they open their book, there's an energy to them. They're like, it's like, let me show you what I've done. And
Yeah.
that's not an introvert or an extrovert. That's a proud artist. It's a proud craft person. And they just open it up, and that energy. If you're not excited about your work in your portfolio, then excuse my language, but why the hell should I be?
God, you just said so much great stuff.
I'm sorry.
You said so much great stuff about also how to interview the person you're going to work for.
Yeah. Well, you should, shouldn't you?
Listen to the questions that they're asking you. You don't want to just go to the first person who's going to ask you to dance. And I love the idea of controlling the order, because the fact of the matter is, Derek, that we're in a world now where they're grids.
Yeah.
And these kids look at the analytics, and most people only look at 2 or 3 things out of their 6 or 8 things. So that should tell you something right there.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important part of what you said, and I want the listeners to take away whatever they want to take away from it, was approaching your portfolio as a project in itself.
Yeah.
And take some pride in not just the individual elements, the whole element.
Yeah. I mean,
the whole element.
I've judged award shows that have for young people, and they send you to their portfolio and they're 40 pieces.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
See?
But I tell them, if they only look at one, are you good with all 40 of those? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So next question. These are about you.
Mm-hmm.
What's been the favorite part of your career or your job so far? What have been the highlights? We talked about some of the challenges. We talked about what we're up against, but why do you come back to this? And what's been the best parts? Some of the more enjoyable moments?
Oh, dear God.
What one is you just thought of?
I met the Secret Service. I'm doing my friend. Oh, okay. My very first job at Kramer Castle, my art director and I did some NAACP posters.
Mm-hmm.
And we used a lot. We got permission from the stock houses, because it was a PSA to use certain pictures. So we're in New York with these big overblown boards, and we're presenting at the NAACP board. And
whoa, cool.
This little old Black woman walks straight up to us and goes, "That's John." And we're like, "Yeah, excuse me?" She goes, "That's John in that picture." And I'm like, "Okay." But we're presenting. We're in the middle of presenting.
In the middle of the presentation.
And she grabs the poster and walks out. And nobody says anything. So my art director, who's white, looks at me and I go, no. Something's wrong here that nobody stopped her. I don't know this woman.
Oh.
And she walks out. And I'm portfolio center trained. I've been abused. So I pull up the next one and we're presenting it. About now, maybe 5 minutes later, both doors open and in walks Secret Service. And they're Secret Service because they had the ear thing on, the big guys in their suits.
Right.
And this little woman is between the 2 first Secret Service men. And I'm like, oh crap, we've broken national security on something or whatever. And behind the lady and the 2 Secret Service people is let me get it right, is Congressman John Lewis. And we had used a picture where he got the dent in his skull. The policeman hit him in the skull on the Pettus Bridge. And she recognized John Lewis in this blurry photo because she was on the bridge that day. Her name's Dorothy.
Oh my God.
Dorothy Height, one of the grandmothers of the civil rights movement. Sharp woman. And he comes in and he goes, oh, Miss Dorothy wanted me to know that I was in the poster. She loves the poster. And he's just talking about it and he's explaining. He goes, because that's where I picked up my stutter. And you can see the indenture in the grainy black and white photo his skull, and you can see the policeman standing over him with a billy club. And you're sitting there,
Good Lord.
and we finished, and they love him, and that's okay. But on the plane ride back, you got two junior creators from going back to the agency, and he goes, my partner goes, I'm not sure how we tell this story when we get back to the agency. Because, all of a sudden our bosses are like, wait, you met Senator John Lewis? Yeah. And, it's like, shoot, we should have gone,
Right.
And that was
Wow.
and it was just, that moment was so surreal because I look back and I saw him. This is in the 90s. So throughout the 2000s, I'm seeing Dorothy Height on TV, and she's a fire plug. And I'm like, I chuckle because she had me stymied for a second. You go,
Yeah. That is crazy. So what was he do? I guess he was there for NAACP. He just happened
yeah,
to be there?
yeah, he was there.
Wow.
I mean, he was like, we need, and I mean, there's nothing more than John Lewis turning to the room going, we need to do these posters.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You
okay.
know, yeah,
We're
I
doing
mean,
them.
and he wasn't there long. So it wasn't like he had to study them. It was like his stamp of approval. And he goes, oh, I love this line. And one of the lines was, it's not like we're asking you to give blood. We already have.
There you go. That's a generation you and I came up in.
Yeah.
Smart lines.
So that was one. The other was I did, and it's so funny that I've got some that aren't nonprofit, but I did the Susan G. Komen. My mom was dying of breast cancer, and I was just a mess. I was in a rage about cancer. And we did a campaign, and we made NFL players cry.
Yeah, that's something.
We showed the storyboards. From the storyboards, players cried. And I was like, and the whole idea was we took songs. She's a friend, she's a lover, she's a woman, she's my wife. She's the answer prayer every lonely man dreams of. And that's a song from a husband. And the whole idea is breast cancer hurts more than just the people it kills. Right. So it's from the man's perspective, get her to get a mammogram. We did Butterfly Kisses for the father, and for the son, I'll always love my mama. And it's so funny. This one was the first, we presented it, and it was directed towards men. And the NFL Players Association gave us a spot on every game that season.
Oh,
and
bravo.
And
that's awesome.
And you don't realize how big that is.
What agency was that?
That was Timberland McLean.
Okay.
And I paused because I didn't do it with Timberland.
Okay.
I got written up for doing the boards.
So you did it on the side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought them to my creative director, and he was like, we're not doing this shit. And I was like, oh, okay. So I packed them up, and I went on it. And as soon as the Ford Foundation paid for the production cost, the NFL players gave us airtime, and all of that press started coming up, I got pulled into his office and written up for not including the agency.
Oh, good Lord.
And
yeah, I worked for an agency in New York that you could do all the freelance you wanted to, as long as you put the agency's name on it if you entered it to awards. That was it.
Yeah.
Use the printers, use the office, whatever you want, just put our name on it, which was great.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So what is it about Derek Walker? What personal trait of yours? What is it about you that you think has served you best so far?
I think it's got to be, I'm patient. I don't appear to be, but I am.
No, you do not.
I have waited a long time for things, and I will. Once I believe in an idea, I'm going to see this through. And if it takes a day or it takes 2 or 3 years, it doesn't make any difference to me. I'm one of or focused, I guess.
Persistent.
Yes.
Tenacious.
Because if I have that idea and that idea seems like the answer to the thing, I'll listen to you and I'll adjust it, but I won't take my eyes off that idea.
Oh,
and
cool.
that's what, you know, it's sort of it's served me, but it's also hurt because sometimes people think that's you're not listening or you're not compromising. But if you really and truly, and this is for the young folks, if you know that idea will work, but it has to be a certain way, sometimes you have to tell everybody else, look, let's just try it this way. And if it doesn't work this way, then we can do something else. But let it, at least it's deserving of one attempt the way it's designed.
Right. Right.
And
That
and our young people are taught to give up too quickly. We're
interesting.
teaching them that. It's like, oh no, take everybody's input in, take it in, but don't use it if it hurts.
Interesting.
Um, and I am a 56-year-old man getting that same with the Kumite. I have
Yeah.
had suggestions from the Kumite where people say, well, make it virtual. But how do we get people to get to know each other and work together well in a short period of time if they're not in the same space?
Right.
And all this person was stuck on was it's easier to do it virtually.
Something
And
else. It's not the same. It's not, well, it's not it anymore.
no. And my response startled me because I didn't know where this one came from. I said, you keep asking about making it easier. You haven't said a word about making it better.
Oh God. So for the listeners that don't know what we're talking about, Kumite is it's a competition. Correct
Yes.
me if I'm wrong. It's sort of a run and gun, almost like a death match style run and gun for real clients under a pressure of time constraints and intensity, and it's a way to give opportunity to some young people while doing some great work for
Yeah.
agencies. Yeah.
hmm and but this is the problem we're you guys especially Portfolio Center, Creative Circus, Miami Ad School, the one up was in Minneapolis, the ones wherever you're dealing with young people.
Mhm.
For the love of God, teach them to dream.
Yeah. Take some
Teach,
chances.
yeah, believe in the vision.
Mm.
When you get old, you'll have plenty of time not to be as idealistic or as Don Quixote as you should be. But
Yeah. I remember the students who
mhm,
chuckled when I said that's not going to work and did it anyway, and
yeah,
it was great because they saw it. They
yeah.
saw it more than I could see it.
There's a quick story on this one, and it's so funny. It came from church. The minister was talking about a building program, and he told the story. And he may be lying, so ministers lie. Let me quit. And he tells the story about Walt Disney, and Disney died before Disney World. One of the Disneys were built.
3 months, I think, or
hmm
3 years. 3 years. Disney World. He had the
Disney,
plan for Disney World as a utopia. Died before it was finished.
yeah. Well, there's an interview when it opened, and the reporter asked Mrs. Disney, "Don't you wish Walt was here to see it?" And she turns to the reporter and says, "Young man, he saw all of this."
Oh, that's crazy. That gives me goosebumps.
And that was he was and the message from the minister was the one with the vision doesn't have to see the final execution because they've
Wow.
already seen it. And that's what our young people need to be, us creators, period. Us, all of us creators. If you have that vision for the work, then you've got to trust your vision sometimes. You got to,
So, but we have you always been confident? Because that's the thing. I think the young people are like they're scared that they might be wrong with their vision. I think that comes with a little bit of seasoning. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
think,
don't want. I don't want to let them off the hook. But I think
no,
it's
I think it was raised in me by my parents. You know, my father is a drill instructor, was a drill instructor. And he was always like, make sure you know what you're going to do before you move.
hmm,
You know, my mom was a planner. I mean, she was a planner. So she not a planner like an agency planner, but she planned out steps. So she was like, even when you look like you're not, so I was raised, even when you look like you're not really responding in your head, you've already made those moves. You already mapped
okay.
out how this is going to end. Um,
That's really cool. That's
so
cool.
the confidence isn't really to me, it's not confidence as much as I've already mapped this out. If
Right.
I if I do something, even on social media, if I post something, I've already been playing those moves out in my head. How's this going to be responded to? Who's going to say this? What's going to happen? And
That's huge.
I'm not sure that's confidence, though. I don't know what to call it. Preparation? It's not preparation because I don't know. It's all in my head. I'm not a good writer down for stuff like that.
That's really interesting.
But I
Wow.
just that's how I think, and I've worked with a group of creators, and God has blessed me this way, who you can tell when people are doing that. You know, it's like, what if we do this? And they'll look at you and go, yeah, but then this is going to happen, and then this, and then this, and then that. You know, and it comes out so naturally in the conversation that you don't realize that the person does it. But when you're one of us looking at another person, you go, because there's some people I've explained stuff to, and they go, okay, let's do that. And I'm like, well, do you know what's going to happen down the line? And they're like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, no, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I got involved in a social justice lobbying group here in
mhm,
Atlanta to go down to the Capitol lobby. And one of the arguments that you tend to use to make a point in some bad legislation is the concept of unintended consequences.
yeah,
Yes, you think this is great, but do you realize that if this happens, that this is also going to occur, that this is
yeah.
not what your constituents are going to be happy about?
Mhm.
So it's similar. Last question for you. You ready? Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to 94, the day you left Atlanta to go to your first job from Portfolio Center, what would you whisper in young Derek's ear? What do you wish you'd known?
God, I think I would have told him, have more fun.
You were uptight.
Yeah, I worked too hard that first couple of jobs, you know. Um, I did great work, but I was like I was trying to. I came out of the portfolio center older, so I was always feeling like I was chasing, trying to catch up. And instead of that, I should have just been on my stayed on my pace. My pace is my pace. This is my journey. So and had more fun doing it.
Yeah, I think we didn't realize then how long your career is,
Yeah.
what the pace, like what a healthy pace is, and that things do come. Um, That's really interesting. So before we wrap up, I want to thank Andrew Harper for suggesting you, even though Lisa did as well.
Okay.
Nate Goodwin for just being a goofball.
Oh God, I love that boy.
And listeners, you can find Derek on Twitter, Derek L. Walker.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
I think
spell Derek for him.
DEREKL Walker, the traditional sense of Walker.
I have had
Derek L. Walker.
I've had people misspell my name in emails replying to me.
That's a quick delete.
Yeah, so you know, it's like, wait, huh? And then I was like,
Um,
did I? Then you know, you scroll back up to the top of your email and go, yeah, I spelled my name right. So
yes, you did.
how do you misspell my name?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Oh, sorry.
I think I also interrupted you when you said the FWA.com, thefwa.com. And everybody can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can just search my name, you'll find it.
I'm
Derek,
on LinkedIn
man,
also.
yeah, LinkedIn's good
Yeah.
spot to find you. Derek Walker, thank you so much. I really so
Thank you
much
for
appreciate
having
the
me.
conversation. It's been great. Really, really appreciate it. Listeners, I'll see you again very soon. Till then, pay attention. Work hard.
Have
See you.
fun.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.